We are with my good friend, Buddy Blanch, who is the lead vocalist for Romeo Delight. And Romeo Delight is a tribute band to the legendary Van Halen. And a lot has happened since the last time we spoke, Buddy. First
Yeah.
and foremost, the loss of Eddie Van Halen. Feels like, Buddy, that have a really bad cold and I take NyQuil and I hit the wall and I have almost what seems to me like an out of body experience when you're numb, that feeling. That's what this year's been like. And we thought that, 2021 would be better.
I know. And it really hasn't been, right?
No, it hasn't. It's got off to a really bad start. Now, when we spoke the last time, I don't think we were even considering any sort of quarantine. And for somebody as yourself, Romeo Delight, what have you been doing since COVID-19 started?
We started out with so much momentum as far as live performances and, venue connection and, in putting our shows together. And then all of a sudden, everything just comes to a screeching halt. And it's kind of takes you by surprise, like this whole COVID thing has taken everybody by surprise. But you just kind of just have to wait it out and just take it from there.
I've got an interesting question off the top of my head. Was Romeo Delight ever able to use the PPP, to get the paycheck protection? No, that's unfortunate.
I know.
I wonder how many rock bands actually had the balls to do that. Like, oh man, I'm putting down for the PPP. What are you guys doing to, I guess, make the best out of the situation? Because it seems like a lot of people are very creative these days. They are making the best out of the situation under these COVID-19 conditions. I've got probably a few examples of that for myself, but what are you guys doing?
The theaters are opening at 50% capacity. So it's like, do you wait it out till it's full capacity? Or do you go in and just try and satisfy the market for what it is now? And that's pretty much what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're putting together just making sure we know all of our material and we keep things sharp because you know how it is. So you use it or lose it.
Are you guys rehearsing on a regular basis in Romeo Delight?
Yes, we're rehearsing and we have rehearsal tomorrow. But before everything, the weather changed, we were doing a lot of outside shows and pulling big numbers to those outside shows. And some of the things are partitioned off to comply with the codes for the times, and but we still managed to get a lot of people to come out still because people need to be out.
That's great.
The code.
Now, what about some sort of virtual concerts? Are you guys doing that?
The thing about Romeo Delight and the performance end of it for people is that it's like the crowd and the lights and the sound and the girls. I mean, just having everybody there giving you that energy is what makes you give your best. And we have been offered endless shows with online performances. And to be honest, I just been turning them all down because I just don't feel that same energy that I would normally have to be able to give my best. So, but we are doing a show. We're doing some things like we're offering live streams at a few of our reduced capacity theater performances. Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah,
I think that's a good idea. I agree with you on that. I mean, there are some people that can pull it off, and I think for the right reasons, if you do it, that's fantastic, especially if it's a cause.
Yeah,
like you want to raise money and
right.
Raise money for the troops, raise money for the dog kennels that need food, whatever it might be, whatever the cause is. That's a wonderful thing.
Right.
But you're right about that concert experience. All I can do is equate it to this, buddy. I have not enjoyed this year's football games. I think it's bullshit that they're putting these teams in stadiums without any fans, and the fans are part of the team, right? I don't think even the football players really understood how important home field advantages and how important their fans are. The fans are part of the team. They really are. I mean, they're the spirit of the team. Without the fans, there's no reason to play. And I'm just watching the whole football season. And, you know, you're an NFC East fan, I guess, like myself. You love your Eagles. What happened? This is nothing that happened. Nothing happens. Nothing happened. Nothing. What?
It's, you know, I know you're saying it's the energy that's gone, you know.
Yeah.
And believe me, Zach, I'm a musician first, you know, as
Right.
far as that goes. But I know what you're saying, and it is part. I mean, to hear the roar of the crowd, I mean,
Well,
you know, it's
I
going to
mean,
bring out the best in you and the
the
players
reason
and
why,
the
well,
musicians.
honestly, buddy, the reason why I hate the Eagles so much is the fans. Can't stand their fans.
Mm.
And I'm sure that the feeling is mutual with us Giant guys. Can't stand each other. But we like that. We like not liking each other. We like mixing it up. We like to, you know.
It's part of the energy.
Right.
Right.
I mean, Washington, you know, they don't really offend me that much. The Washington football team never really,
Right.
you know, it's like, man, you go there, have some sushi while you watch it. Yeah, great. Yeah, Washington. How do you have a hockey game without people in the stands?
Missing that energy.
You're missing that energy.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about the Flyers, the Broadway bullies, I guess they call them. Broad Street bullies. Is that what
That's
they are?
it.
All right, Broad Street. I'm Broadway. They're Broad Street. All right.
Right.
I'll never forget when I was watching in the 70s, the Flyers, who didn't wear helmets, didn't have any, like, you know, things to protect their teeth, beat the living crap out of the Russian team. Remember that?
Sure.
They beat the crap out of the Russian team so badly that the Russian team didn't want to come out in the third period.
Right.
That's why I like the Flyers, because they
Right.
beat up the. This goes back to 1977, I think. I don't even know
They,
how long
the Flyers
been.
give it, you know, they gave it all in the 70s.
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
really did.
Yeah.
You know, of course. So I can definitely understand your point of view of having that live audience. Now it's scaled down, and 50 people can really be appreciative and make a lot of noise. Right. So there's that.
Sure. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. We've done like we played the Landis Theater in New Jersey, in Vineland, New Jersey last month. We did a big Christmas show there, and you know that we did we had it was a 700 seat theater, and you have it cut down quite a bit, and but you still fit people in there enough to make noise. And you know, it's kind of a different experience, even though we do have some crowd there. You know, the way they have all the seats partitioned off with tape on them to, you know, to comply. And I have to take pictures of the seats because it's kind of like a piece of history that's actually happening right now, you know, for it to be taped off like that for the, you know, for the books.
Well, to
So,
make a good video as well, just to
yeah,
nobody would ever believe it, right?
exactly.
I think that there's probably a misconception about tribute bands, and
Mm.
I'd like to have your take on that.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I think that what it's all about is celebrating the music. You know, it's bringing a little bit energy and the sounds and the and honoring really the music of it, and you can't get that if you can't get that from the original source. I think that it's good to come and see us, Romeo Delight, doing the Van Halen show, because what we're going to do is we're going to bring the energy, and most importantly, we're going to bring like the party. I mean, if you want that, that's what you're going to get. And you know, I think that for some people just don't get it. You know, it's not like we, you know, you just want to celebrate the music. That's really what it's all about, celebrating the music.
I think people think that being in a tribute band is easy. I think that they might think that it's, oh, big deal. You're just covering somebody's songs. I think that the physicality involved, especially for Romeo Delight, if you're going to go all out, David Lee Roth in
Oh my goodness,
1979, he's a madman. The
absolutely.
physicality, the attention to detail, because of what people expect out of a tribute band, where if you're Van Halen and you get up there and you don't put in your best effort, you miss a couple of notes or you forget a couple of lyrics, they forgive you. There's less forgiveness with a tribute band. You got to get it right. You got to like just get into that element. You got to get into the part. And I think that in many ways, it's like being a Broadway star. It is really hard to be spot on each and every time and nail it out of the ball, hit it out of the ballpark or nail it each and every time. I think that if more people understood that part of it, the more they would appreciate tribute bands overall.
I think you're right. You have to get it right because that's what it is expected. And like you said, like Led Zeppelin would come out there in the '70s, and even Aerosmith and David Lee Roth live. They can get away with more, but for us, like coming out there and really singing it like the record,
Right.
getting as close as you can to the record. We do some live segments of what they had done before, but primarily for us, it is the album, and that's what people hear on the radio. All the summers that have went by that they were able to hear that Van Halen music coming out when they played it all the time. That's what we're trying to bring. And you're right,
See,
it is tricky trying to recreate it all,
well,
but
that's really
it's
hard to
work.
get. It's hard to get the record sound too, because
Yeah,
even the Rolling Stones, I got to tell you something. I don't like sometimes what I hear from the Rolling Stones when they do their live. It seems like Mick Jagger. I'm like, I don't know. He doesn't sing like that on the record, and I don't know. Are you allowed to have those kind of thoughts without being stoned by the public? Dare say that. I don't know, man. Just live, they just don't have it. Some bands are great in the studio. Van Halen, listen, I saw him with David Lee Roth in maybe 1982, 83. I saw him at, I don't know if it was Madison Square Garden or at the time the Continental Airlines Arena, which was the Brendan Byrne. I'm not really sure. I saw them. I thought it was fantastic. I had a great time. It was right when Eddie Van Halen broke his thumb and they had to cancel. So whatever year that was, what year
right.
was that?
That was
82?
it was right. Yeah, 82. I would go with.
82.
Yeah,
So now you're Van Halen at the prime. So I saw him then. And then
right.
many years later at Merriweather Post Pavilion after they released OU812. So that, well, a little bit after that, right around, I'm going to say 90, 91, 92, around that area.
Yes.
I saw him with Sammy Hagar.
Nice.
And I got to tell you, I like them both equally. Now,
I know. Yep.
Yeah.
I
mean, there was that article with me and Vivian Campbell where he sided with Sammy Hagar. Have you seen that one?
No.
It went all over the place. It's been around the world about 4 times since I interviewed Vivian Campbell, and we both agreed that we like the Sammy Hagar lineup better. But just saying that,
right.
boom! I mean, all over the place, millions of people viewing it.
It made it trouble.
Yeah, I did, and I ended up in magazines I never thought I would end. Really, I'm in that magazine. Wow, that's a. I ended up in a punk rock magazine along the way somehow, talking about the Ramones. I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Right.
So we've established that the distinction and how you have to be spot on. What are some of your favorite songs that when you get up on stage, you're like, I cannot wait? There's always that anticipation when you start your set. I can't wait till we get to this song.
Sure. Well, the opening song is always a lot of energy and thunder. And, a lot of times we have a couple go-to songs. And of course the intro, like a lot of time, like I know that I just wrote the set list for our next performance and we're going to open up with Unchained. That song is just, that song is over the top and then come out with that. And really, I love what the audience loves. And for me, like Hot for Teacher, oh my gosh, you just can't go wrong with a song like that.
No. And remember the video? Hello,
Absolutely,
Waldo. Yeah. And Miss Fizette is in her 60s now. Just why you did.
Oh, it's hard to believe. I actually did look her up just to see what, and she still looks good.
Now, the drumming on Hot for Teacher, do you know who inspired that? Because I've had some drummers thinking that maybe that Alex Van Halen, was inspired by them. Who do you think was the drummer that inspired that?
Maybe like the drummer for Cream. He may have been the
Jack
guy.
Bruce?
Yeah.
No, it was it Ginger Baker? No, which is the drummer?
Ginger Baker. Yeah, you're right.
Ginger Baker, he would like fight with people and threaten to shove this drumstick up their ass and stuff
Right.
like that. I like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it might have been Carmine Apiece.
Yeah, Carmine Apiece. Yeah.
Could have been.
To me, it always sounds like, he's just trying to imitate an engine, trying to start an engine, rolling down the avenue. And that's what it always reminds
Well,
me of.
that's in Panama, I think that, but that Hot for Teacher with that drumming in the beginning,
Yeah. So Carmine Apiece, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Nice.
Well, hey, de gustibus non est disputandum. It was easier for me to say when I didn't have dentures in the front teeth. But yeah, that's a good one. I like Black and Blue.
That's a great song.
I can remember when I first heard that. I was in Atlantic City area and I was listening to 100.7 WZXL or something like that. It was
Right.
a rock station. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great station. And a great song. I mean, it just, knocked it out of the park again. And I was so jealous because I wasn't on that station. I was on the crummy oldies station where I couldn't play that new Van Halen. Pissed me off.
That'll do it.
Yeah, really. Your favorite Van Halen album of all time, or if you want to do one from each type of, I guess, era, you can do it that way too.
Well, my favorite Van Halen album is got to be Fair Warning. It doesn't have the big songs on there, but it's got the big feel. It's got that Eddie Van Halen Brown sound that he had made famous through his amps that he had created, and David Lee Roth's vocals, and and even Alex's thick snare drum on that song, on those songs on that album. Just, it's over the top for me. The songs on that album remind me of summertime.
Yep,
And
I'm looking at the tracks right now. That's one of my
yeah,
favorite ones. I remember getting it. Mean Streets, Dirty Movies
yeah,
is a great song.
oh,
Take it off,
yeah,
take it all off.
yeah, yeah,
They're
yeah.
having a fun time there.
Good.
Unchained is on it.
Yeah, there you
Push
go.
Comes to Shove.
Right.
So this is love. Sunday
Yeah.
afternoon in the park, 1 foot out the door. Mean Streets. Is this Mean Streets? Now, how does Mean Streets go? How does that go again? Just
Well,
give me a little bit.
it's got that little bit, guitar playing in the beginning. That's kind of has that excellent riff that he has, in the intro of the song.
Yeah, but what are some of the lyrics? Oh, I lost him.
Coming in with that, and not I'll walk this stinking street.
That's it. Yes. Yes.
Past
Yeah.
the
Right.
crazies on my block. And
Yeah.
it's just, wow,
Yeah.
it's full of attitude.
You know what? And when I hear that, I'm thinking of the Troubadour and the Whiskey a Go-Go, and I could just picture LA in my head when they're singing Mean Street.
Yeah, it's all built in there.
It is, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's very gritty.
It is.
Right. You could almost like, I can smell just before it rains. I could smell that, that whole thing. Yeah, that's right. Dirty Movies, of course. Let's talk about some other Van Halen albums.
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to, how about Women and Children first? Let's talk about some of the tracks.
I love Women and Children first. It's always a toss up for me between those two, Fair Warning and Women and Children. I love, of course, Romeo Delight.
Right. Of course. Yeah.
Our band. I think that song is just, wow. That is, to me, that's like one of the best Van Halen songs ever because of the feel and the groove and the way it slows down and the breaks in that song and the anticipation after some of the lulls in the song, the way it comes back in with like exploding crescendos, and the whole thing is just amazing. That's that album, but with that song especially.
Well, and
Cradle of Rock.
and the Cradle of Rock. Now, I like the flange effect.
Yeah.
And the best part is like, have you seen Junior's grades? Yeah.
Everybody loves it.
Everybody wants some. I want some too.
Yeah.
And I love the drumming on that.
Yeah. There you go.
That's great.
Identifiable drumming part,
Yep. And let's go. See, this is fun. When now we're talking about, this is guy talk. This is what you talk about when the Van Halen. I remember getting all the records. I don't know if you ever did this, buddy, but after I would go see any band in concert, and if it was Van Halen, the very next day I would go to the record store and made sure that I had everything in the catalog.
Yeah,
You know? Yeah. So that was always
definitely.
cool. So let's look at track listing for Van Halen 2. Now, oh, You're No Good. You're no good, you're no good, you're no good, baby, you're no good. Yeah.
You know
Somebody
you're
give me
Van
a
Halen, sir.
huh?
You know you're Van Halen.
Yeah, I do. Beautiful Girls, the kiss
Oh,
at the end. That was always good.
absolutely.
I think that we'll get to Diver Down. We'll get back to that. So we're kind of going out of sequence, but the very first one is 1978. And it's the real introduction to Van Halen. Now, I've always remembered the story that Gene Simmons is the guy that really discovered them, and they originally wanted to call themselves Genesis,
Right.
and they were in the store. Eddie and Alex were in the store, and they found the Genesis album, so they're like,
That's right.
can't be Genesis. Then they somehow came up with Mammoth, and I think it was David Lee Roth's idea to call him Van Halen. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I think he felt like that had the best presence with the band, that name, and it was an original name. It was the name of the guys in the band, and I think since then he may have regretted that.
Yeah, I
But
I
no,
can.
I think it was the best name, and David Lee Roth knew it, so it obviously was the right name,
Well,
an
Roth would have been
original
a
name.
name.
Yeah,
Roth is a cool name for a band.
yeah,
Roth, we're Roth.
yeah.
But Van Halen was a good name, and
Sure.
probably also because they're half the band, as well as not only being half the band, but who had the most money in the pool, like in the
Right,
pot, so to speak, like, well, sort
right.
of like Bon Jovi, his uncle had the access to the recording studio, and
Record
we're going to
plant.
name
Yeah,
it Bon Jovi. Because
there you
I
go.
would say if I was Richie Sambora, I'm like, I don't think so, John. We're going to name it something different, not your last name, maybe Bon Sambora or whatever you want to call it,
There's this
something.
Bon Jovi. There's a skit. Bon Jovi was on Saturday Night Live, and it was hysterical because they were reenacting when they were naming the band. And Bon Jovi's on there, and every name that he came up with was like, "Well, I just think it should be Bon Jovi because, of this reason, that reason," and you just come at him from all these different angles, and it was hysterical. But yeah, Bon Jovi, him recording "Runaway" first,
Yeah.
that gave him the seniority, and of course, like you said, like his uncle with the record plant.
Well,
Other than
yeah,
that,
and also if you're the guy who's financing it, putting the most money into it, you can,
yeah,
call
yeah,
it whatever
that's
you want.
right.
So now let's talk about the track listing on this. You got Running with the Devil, right?
Love that one.
That, and by the way, the I can't explain that sound. The only thing I could say, it's gritty, it's dirty, it's deep, it's sort of dark but bright at the same time. It's got contrast, and it's almost like a black and white movie, but colorized. I don't even
Yeah,
know how to explain it. It's just so cool the way they would get those sounds. Um,
absolutely.
Covering the Kinks, you really got me with the Eruption. Okay.
That's going over it for me, like that song is just, they brought their own life to it, they brought their own oneness to it, they own that song, to take it to another level. Like, I know when I would read about Eddie, he would always take, when they did a cover song, he would take it and make it his own, and he would find a way to put some kind of swirling synthesizer like Dancing in the Streets, or like the Kinks song, bringing that his own guitar sound to it, and David Lee Roth just putting his own feel and spin on the melody is what I think made that song just so, for me, of course, so much better than the Kinks version, even though I love the Kinks too. But
Well, I think what we have here is interpretation of the song. And,
mhm.
I can think of one automatically that was made into its own by Jimi Hendrix. When I think of a cover song by Jimmy, what's the first one that pops in your head? All
Like,
Along the Watchtower?
yeah, yeah.
All right. So he did it so well that you thought that he was the original guy, right? That did
Hmm.
all along. I had no idea it was a Bob Dylan song until like years down the road.
That's right.
Then there's a story
Nobody told me.
behind this. You want to hear about this? Who's with you?
Just some of my People.
Bring him in. Bring him in the camera.
They're shy.
That's all right.
They forgot their sunglasses.
Yeah, nobody looks as bad as I do. They can do some camera time.
Oh my God.
Have everybody say hi.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So we got Van Halen. So and the rest of the tracks, like the very last track on Van Halen 1, On Fire, that song is just so much energy, and the lyrics in that song, just talking about themselves, bringing the energy through the FM stations, and giving people a blast, and just getting off on their music, throw your headphones on, I'm laying in bed, I'll be right there, it's just one of a kind stuff that I think that never has really been, out there before. And that's really what made that album so different from anything else, especially in 1978. I always say that, Eddie Van Halen, what he did was disco was so popular then, and punk rock. And when that album came out on February 10th, 1978, what had happened was they kind of stopped disco. They put their foot down, and they changed the course of music with that album. And I'm so grateful. And even today, even though Eddie's not here, all that music came back on the charts again. He's like saving music again. They did it with, in '78, they did it with Guitar Hero, and now they're doing it again. It just goes to show you how amazing and one of a kind they were.
Yeah,
and
and you're right. They defined for a long time. Let's just call it a good 10 years. They defined the direction that rock would take.
right,
I mean, the first one I would think when I put my list together of great rock bands, Van Halen was always at the top of the list.
definitely.
What really always got me, and I want to talk about Diver Down. I hope you don't mind this, because now I'm really having fun talking about Van Halen records.
I'm with you.
Okay. So we would have these list of the greatest guitar players of all time.
Right.
And, it's funny because Alex, I guess the time, if you're doing this in the 70s, Alex is not going to be on that list. So you're going to fight over Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck, Dwayne Allman. Take your pick. There's probably some others that I'm forgetting. Eric Clapton. No.
Yeah.
We never really got into who the best bass player was. That's kind of weird, because you think that would be one of the things you would talk about. But the women loved the guitar player, the lead guitarist, and the vocalist. Right?
That's
the
right.
drummer and the bass guy were like, in the back. And we would get into the conversation, best drummers. Now, this is really interesting as far as drummers go. Move forward 30, 40, 50 years or whatever it might have been. And I'm sitting there with Carmine Appice, a good friend of mine, and I go to him, I go, hey, how come Alex isn't on the list when we talk about greatest drummers of all time? And he'll go, well, he really came after the rest of us, was his answer. I'm like, sort of makes sense. I can understand that, but let's say in the 80s, there's nobody better than Alex Van Halen on the drums, which is really interesting in the fact that Eddie started out playing the drums. And I think that Alex was on guitar, and at one moment they flip-flopped. Yeah, they switched, which is crazy, right? And then you talk about the vocalists and all of those different things. So it's just a very interesting conversation. Now, when I look at my list of greatest guitar players of all time, I have to say that he probably comes in at number 3, because the default always will be Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page. And I don't think anybody would have a problem coming in at number 3 towards those guys. Now, Jimmy Page would probably tell you he belongs number 1 over Jimi Hendrix, but I'm just going to give the nod to Jimi Hendrix because he did so much in 5 years that, you couldn't even keep up with it if you tried.
Right. Absolutely.
Right?
I mean, yeah, Jimmy's great. And, I'm sure there was like I don't know for sure, but I'm sure, like you said, he came before. And, I'm sure, Eddie listened to him and really appreciated him too, even though we all know, Eddie Van Halen's favorite guitar player is Eric Clapton. But, like you said, he came before, just like the drummer. So, Jimmy's great, but,
But I mean, really, Alex is, I'm starting to sound like an old man. Eddie is on a list all to himself, right? You know, he's just like it's like Eddie and everybody else because he had that signature sound that I don't think too many people could even duplicate. And we'll get into more of that as well as we
Sure.
go along. The other thought I had about a guitarist who belongs on the list who always is ignored in the conversation is Prince. Like I don't know why Prince never gets on that list because I've watched him.
He's great. Yeah, great.
Yeah, that While My Guitar Gently Weeps.
I know.
He kicks the crap out of everybody. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know that.
I know.
He's better
What
than
was that?
Clapton. I was like, what the hell did I just? All right,
Yeah.
so let's go to Diver Down.
Yeah.
Now, when we get to Diver Down, I understand that there was a little bit of discord between Eddie and David Lee Roth at this time because
Sure.
I think Eddie wanted to do more original type of music,
Right.
and David wanted to do these covers. And you know, he does a great thing, like those old songs like Big Bad Bill and Happy Trails. That's kind of cool. I mean, he was right to put that on there. He did his own interpretation, but side one starts off with an actual, I think it's a Kink song, right?
Yeah.
All the Good Times Gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Figured, I guess if it worked once with You Really Got Me, you know, we'll try it with Where Have All the Good Times Gone and see how hit that, you know, throw that against the wall and see how that sticks. And
but that sound, it was like an anvil getting hit on the head.
Right?
Right? I mean, it's
for
awesome.
sure. Yeah, definitely.
Then you had Hang 'em High.
I love that one. That song, you know, memorizing all the words to that and never, you know, just listening to it, and that has a lot of attitude to it. You know, that's a killer song. I love the guitar riff in that too.
And what's that song based on? Were they watching some country or I'm saying westerns at the time?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. You know, cap upon his head, you know, has one ear to the ground, listening to the Dead. You know, it's like it's definitely western stuff. You know,
yeah, that's great. Cool. And I do believe on this album, did they have that? Was it this album or another one where they had that pretty provocative video in which there was whips being used and they were out in a western?
Yeah,
could have been Pretty Woman, maybe. I don't know.
Exactly. It was the Pretty Woman video. Yeah, definitely. That was cool too. Having you know,
but before you get to the Pretty Woman, you get the Intruder.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally cool. All that feedback in there,
right?
Original sounding again. You know.
And let me just tell you, as a disc jockey, how annoying it was to have a program director that would not allow you to play that Intruder before Pretty Woman. It's like, no, we got to get right there. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you? Everybody is going to listen to it. Oh, I know what I'm talking about. No, you don't.
No.
I mean, I've almost gotten fired over that, you know, like, you know, no, I must play it.
Yes.
Then you get into how they interpret, I'm going to call it an interpretation, how they take a Pretty Woman song. I mean, Roy Orbison, you know, that beautiful voice, right?
Yeah.
Just like
absolutely.
Mellow and smooth, you know, Pretty Woman, walking down the street. And David just like tears it to shreds, and the whole band and stuff like that, and they put their twist on it.
You know, I played that song with Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees, and we would get together and we played that song at a couple of the Monkees events. And Mickey, you know, he's just an amazing voice and just great singer, and he can do that Roy Orbison stuff beautifully. And you know, and he said, well, what song you think we can do, bud? And I'm thinking, well, you know, looking at the whole Van Halen library, I thought, well, we could, you know, since we're going to do some of yours, and he wanted to do some of mine, and I said, well, we should some of our Van Halen songs. I said, well, Pretty Woman, and he comes in there and he sings it so perfect and beautifully. I was like, and then I think about David Lee Roth comes in there, and like you said, it's rougher. He has his own timing signature, especially in the end when he brings it back in after the guitar solo, and it's their own original take on it again.
Yeah, yeah. David Lee Roth is actually, I think, a brilliant showman. I mean, he's just got that. I don't know what you call it, but he's got it.
He's got charisma.
Je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
Then on side 2, you open up with Dancing in the Street from Martha and the Vandellas, which is a Marvin Gaye song. I think he wrote, might have had some writing with that. But again, there is like definitely a detour of that street where Van Halen goes in a totally different direction. And then when you get to like a Dale Evans song, Happy Trails and the other things, Big Bad Bill, I could see where Eddie's like, no, man, we're Van Halen.
Well,
What
even
are
the
you doing?
backup one with, Dancing in the Streets, Eddie had that created that sound that's, swirling in the back of that song the whole time. And he wanted to use that song, that sound for an original album or for an original song. But, there was timing, they had to get another album out because, they released Pretty Woman as just a regular single and they didn't have a whole album. And what happened is it caught on fire, just like all their other stuff had. And so they had to put together the album. So Eddie had to go in there and put that sound effect somewhere. And he put it in, they chose Dancing in the Streets for it to be, in the background. So I think that, yeah, and then also then going moving from there onto Big Bad Bill, to have, Jan Van Halen, Eddie's dad play on that recording. I think, even though it is something really, off, at least they got to bring their dad in. And it's really cool that Mr. Van Halen came in and was able to record on that song. So they still have brought their own elements of originality, even though, there were those songs on there. And I know that Eddie, is a great songwriter. And I think that there was the conflict, like you said, but Dave is, in the Motown and Eddie's into hard rock and that's where I think a lot of the conflict came from.
Well,
And
yeah, but then there's the follow-up 1984, which is all original.
yeah,
Right.
that's right.
So
It had to
now,
be that after that.
yeah. Huh?
It had to be that after that.
Right. Exactly. So, all right, Dave, I gave you like a lot of rope on this one, but this one's going to be my baby.
Yes.
And I distinctively remember this is when he starts messing around with the keyboards.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
I'm like, I don't know.
Well, they
But
took, first of all, Eddie took everything and he said, we're going to record this at my house. We're recording it in my backyard studio, 5150. And that way, when he did that, he had full control. And that's what needed to happen after Diver Down, because, and then because he did want to make things his own and he did want to try new things. And one of those things were the keyboards, which he's a master at. I mean, he won awards playing piano as a child, and it never was really utilized on any of the albums until really that album, except for Cradle Will Rock.
yeah,
He plays the piano, the piano through the Marshall amp. But, so, and I think that, when David Lee Roth first heard him play, Jump, it was shocking, and it was something that was so alien to them and and hard to incorporate into their live performances because they would always go with the rock stuff. So it was a little challenging, I think, for a lot of people to accept, especially David Lee Roth with Eddie Van Halen. But
my favorite song on that album is
mhm.
Drop Dead Legs. I just thought that like that is the best song I've ever heard in my life. I mean, I can relate to that. Drop Dead Legs and Drop Dead Legs. Yeah.
It's
And then
bluesy.
Betty
Yeah.
Boop was all of a sudden in there. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Betty Boop? How'd you fit
Where did
that
that
in there?
lyric come from?
Yeah, I'm like, okay, all right. It's easy to remember. So thanks for putting that in there.
Yeah.
Everybody can relate to Betty. Now, there's a couple of things going on in the history as I remember it. I was listening to the radio when they released 1984, which would have been New Year's Eve 1983. I couldn't believe what I was hearing on the radio. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is great. I had to work at North Shore Towers out in Long Island. It's right there at the edge of Queens. I was a security guard. I'm like, listen, I'm in the guardhouse and I got my favorite station on, and I'm like, I don't know. You ever see a little baby and they put their hands in the jello and they get all excited with the jello? I was like, I can't believe it. I mean, it was blowing my mind. I mean, there they are having an interview with these guys, and they're going to release this album. It blew my mind. It's like, this is freaking great.
Yes.
And I did see them on that tour as well. And then soon after, all hell breaks loose, and the band kind of breaks up and what have you.
I know.
Which is kind of sad. Have you ever talked to Eddie Van Halen in your life, in your career?
Well, what I've done was I've been in his presence, but I never actually talked to him. I talked to Dave, but Eddie, I was just in the room with him when he was with Valerie, and I was I was a teenager, and but being in the room with him was amazing. That was enough for me. But no, I wish I could have had time to talk to him.
Well, you can always talk to Wolfgang, his son.
Yeah,
That
yes,
I'm sure if you tweet or pick up the phone or try to find him, he'll take your call. Like, most
yeah,
people are
he
really
gets on there.
approachable. Yeah. Because what I would like to know is what were some of his favorite rock bands? You mentioned Eric Clapton as being his favorite guitar player, but
Well, him and Eddie, they loved AC/DC. That
okay,
was that
well,
was
yeah,
that was their band they shared together. And I know that when Wolfgang started playing the drums, they would play AC/DC, and he would learn the AC/DC rhythms and on the drums. And I know that you know Eddie really liked AC/DC too.
how can you
And
not? It's
yeah,
just a freaking great band.
I know, and they played together before, and they
Yeah.
know each other, and of course, and you know, but they're great albums too.
I'm glad you shared that because I had no idea. All right.
Yeah,
So would you know what their favorite AC/DC album would be?
no, that is a good question. I'd have to,
Mm,
look a little further for that, but I know that was one of the bands that they
yeah.
shared together, especially when Wolfgang was learning how to play drums.
Okay. So with that in mind, if you're going to be a Van Halen tribute band, you have to have a favorite AC/DC album. What would that be for you?
Oh my God, I love all the ones with Bon Scott, and I listen to them. I love all them, but then that the Black album right here,
The
the,
Back
the
in
one with
Black
Dennis.
is just the best album of. There's not a bad track on it,
I
right?
know
I mean,
it all
really.
connects. Yeah, it's all
Yeah.
connects together correctly.
And I think if you were unaware at the time, you had no idea that they went from Bon Scott to Brian Johnson. You were just like, unless you really were an aficionado and paying attention. I remember with that album, like, really, they had a lead singer before Brian Johnson. Who's that?
Yeah,
Bon Scott. Oh, you're so stupid. You don't know that. TNT. I'm like, well, I'm sorry. I just didn't have a chance to like look into it because I was spending most of my time. If I was going to go buy an album, it would be, I would look at the album, and if I liked all the songs, I would buy it. I would rarely ever buy an album if I only liked one song. I'm thinking that's not value. I'll take the
right,
greatest hits if it's available. So,
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but it's a long way to the top. If you want to rock and roll is a great song.
Oh
Bon
yeah.
Scott. And it's got bagpipes in it. And
Oh yeah. It's a great video.
we salute you for
Yeah,
those about to rock.
yeah.
We salute
Oh my
you.
God. And
Back in Black, the drums.
yeah,
Forgot
my
about it.
favorite Bon Scott song is definitely "Whole Lot of Rosie." I
Oh
mean, I
yeah.
just love that one. That one
Based
just, oh my
based
gosh.
on a true story. The big girls should love Bon Scott because he liked them large and in charge. It was based. I'm not kidding. I don't know what her name was, but it was a real woman that existed in his life, and he just liked them big. You
Well, you
know.
write about what you know.
Yeah, I mean, he really puts it into that. Like, well, I gotta
Yeah,
watch how I say it, but he
yeah, yeah,
really. That's a lot of gusto in that Big Rosie song. A whole lot of Rosie, and he
yeah,
he tells you how much she weighs and everything. Yeah,
yeah,
it's a
yeah.
great song.
Yeah.
Then
19 Stones.
we get to the Sammy Hagar thing, and I know Romeo that you handle that as well. So when you go up on stage, how do you make that transition of I'm David Roth to now I'm Sammy Hagar?
Well, what we do is, I want to, I hate to like not bring every piece of Van Halen, or at least most of what Van Halen created, maybe because it was all Eddie. So, but as far as doing Sammy, I just kind of get up there and just kind of, I give it a little bit of Sammy in my Dave performance, because we primarily just do all David Lee Roth. But throwing that little bit of Sammy in there really breaks it up. I just kind of just a little gesture here and there, and just really just try and get all the notes right.
Yeah.
And we have to tip our hat to Sammy because I love Sammy. I think he's great.
Me too. I mean,
Yeah, love Sammy.
obviously I got in a lot of trouble with Van Halen fans, and the story's gone around the world several times. Um, I think that finish what you started has got to be the one that
Ah,
you go with, right? Come on, baby,
absolutely.
finish what you started. I
Yes.
mean, complete. I mean,
Yeah.
the what I like about Sammy is the musicality he brings with that extra guitar
Right.
and that more, instrumentalist kind of attitude. He
Right.
plays the guitar. David, he might play the guitar. I don't know. I don't know what
He
kind of,
does. He's
you know,
great. He's great too. I mean, he plays a lot of open chording, David, and he could sit there and rock out, and he could, make it sound like a train rolling down the track the way he plays so percussively. And David Lee Roth did a commercial jingle that was actually on the radio before, Van Halen had any kind of success.
so didn't
Which,
know that. What's the
yeah, yeah,
jingle? Do you know?
I don't, but I will find out now.
Yeah, we'll have
But
to find out. And
yeah,
and then I'll tell you this, that we are, most of us who paid attention understand that there was infighting and all of this stuff. But in the
sure.
end, I was really impressed with how David Lee Roth handled himself and how loving he was towards Eddie when Eddie passed away. That's when, anything that David Lee Roth might have annoyed me over the years with, it was all forgotten. I'm like, just the way he handled
Absolutely.
that, I was like, you know what? Okay, you won
Like
me
he
back,
says,
man.
yeah, there's like a point of reference that you can't escape. You grow up together, you have the same, you drive the same kind of cars, you date the same girls, you're in high school together, and you grow up from younger to middle aged, and there's a point of reference you just always will go back to. And I think that sharing everything they shared together, and it really made them brothers, in the end. And I know what you're
Yeah,
talking about. And the one tour when they first came back, he would stop after the first song, and and they would actually embrace each other and say, this is real, this is how we feel, this is, even though there was all that conflict, you're younger, you're much different people, 10 years will make a big difference in a person's the way they feel about things and the way they had time to reflect, and they come back at it with a renewed energy and spirit and appreciation for each other, you
yeah,
know
I agree. I caught
yeah.
that too. It didn't go missed. So,
Right.
hats off to Diamond David Lee Roth for doing that.
Yeah.
I don't think that sometimes people understand how much healing that kind of actions or those words bring to so many people on so many different levels that might have been, a fan of yours or, knows the story and recognizes who you are. But I think what he did is he raised the bar for all of us. And I'm being honest about this,
Mm.
about how we deal with the past and those fractured relationships and how in the end, we got to do our best to repair it if we can.
Yeah,
And,
it's the right thing.
just exactly. It's all about how you finish it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Because
right.
people will remember that the most. So
Yeah.
that really, out of the whole story, that's what really kind of like, I'm like, wow, you know what? I needed to see that. That made me feel good on many levels, made me rethink certain things. And then also how Valerie dealt with it at the end, being, the ex-wife and going through all of those trials and tribulations, but in the end, they still loved each other and loved one out.
Yeah,
And how Wolfgang, he rose to the occasion. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing to watch. I mean, there was a,
absolutely.
horrible thing to lose somebody, but at the same time, the love that came out of it really
Right,
was amazing to me.
right. Once you share that thing like that Eddie and Valerie had shared, that certain piece of love is always there. And they definitely, Valerie especially, showing that now, with her cooking show she has on there. There was an interview with her last week that was on it. It's just you can't replace that. You can't
Yeah.
replace it.
And
You know?
she even like can get along with his wife that he was married to up until he passed away, right? I think
Yeah,
so.
yeah,
Yeah,
Janie.
that's
Yeah,
that's nice.
yeah,
That's
very.
really nice. That's cool.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
so we're bringing up the loss of Eddie Van Halen, and I shared with you my take on that, and we'll wrap this up now with what was your final take, and what are you going to do moving forward as a result of everything that has taken place, COVID-19, loss of Eddie, and just a little insight of what Romeo Delight's going to do down the road.
Well, every show now to us, I mean, ever since Eddie's passed, is even more important than it had been before, and it's got a different significance to it. It carries a little bit more weight as far as really preserving and honoring, like I said before, the music and giving it to people the way it should be delivered, and having the really just having the opportunity to be able to give that to people and make them see what it was that Van Halen was all about is really an honor and a gift for me to be able to give to people. And that's what we're going to continue to do going forward. We play like sometimes we'll do whole albums. We'll do Van Halen 2 or we'll do Van Halen 1 or 1984 in their entirety. And I love doing those shows because you really get to show the body of work the way that they want to let everybody see it. And for me, that is a show in itself, like a Broadway show. And I'm just going to continue to do that and just rock on.